Why do 90% of Blue Jays fans always have a smile on their face? Because they're tuned into Around the Ballpark podcast with Mike and Darren Redmond. Hey there, baseball enthusiasts. Welcome to episode 65 of the Around the Ballpark podcast with your dynamic duo, Mike and Darren Redmond. Tonight we've got something special for you, an exclusive chat with the one and only Joshua Howsam. Yep, you heard it right. Joshua Howsam is in the house bringing you all the juicy details about our beloved Toronto Blue Jays. From home runs to hot dogs, we're covering it all. So if you're ready to get your Blue Jays fix, buckle up and let's dive into the diamond. This is one episode you won't want to miss. Let's play ball. Let's play.
Hello, everyone. It is the best time of the week. It is Sunday night, February 23rd, and we are live with the Around the Ballpark podcast, episode number 65. I can't believe we're already on number 65. That is so awesome. So thank each and every one of you for being on here with us. We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and X as well. So go ahead and smash the like button if you wouldn't mind. And we are here with myself, Mike Redmond, my co-host, Darren Redmond. We've got a very special guest. Josh is here with us. We're going to talk Toronto Blue Jays baseball, both 2025 and some yesteryear as well. But before we do that and get to know everybody, Darren, would you mind sharing a few words of our sponsor? You'll see them at the bottom of our screen there, Nashville Tax Solutions.
Attention Palm Bay and Fort Pierce. Are you struggling with tax issues? You know, whether you're behind on filings, dealing with a lien, or just need expert guidance, Nashville Tax Solutions is here to help. Their team knows the ins and outs of tax relief and is ready to fight for you. But don't just take my word for it. Don't just take Mike's word for it. Listen to what some of the clients have told us. Chris Bennett and his team has saved me from a financial nightmare. They're knowledgeable, they're clear, and they're compassionate. So don't let tax troubles keep you up at night. Please call 855-627-4829 or visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com or just email info@NashvilleTaxSolutions.com today. Well, after the podcast, please. Nashville Tax Solutions, because tax problems deserve a real solution. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Darren. And just a quick shout out. We are at the most viewers we've ever had for a live Sunday night podcast. So we are very excited to share that. And shout out to everyone following on X. It's been great to get them on board as well. So thank each and every one of you. But without further ado, we want to just get to introduce our very special guest. Joshua is here. We're going to talk Toronto Blue Jays baseball. But Josh, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and where anyone can find you on social media.
Yeah, so my name is Joshua Howsam. I'm from Toronto, lived here my whole life, so makes falling in love with the Blue Jays pretty easy. You can find me on social media at Joshua Howsam, JOSHUAHOWSAM, and on Blue Sky with whatever you search for on Blue Sky. No, it's JoshuaHowsam.social. Whatever they do with them. I'm .bsky.social. Sorry, I'm not good at these because I'm just new to that one. So
that's okay. We're just learning that one ourselves. So thank you for sharing that one. But no, thanks for being on. And this is the perfect time of year to have these conversations, like right before we actually start the baseball season. Everyone's undefeated until opening day. Anything's possible. So, but Darren, I'm sure you got some questions. Before we did anything, one of the things we love to do most on the show, just tell some stories and stuff like that. So would you mind just sharing about how you became a Toronto Blue Jays fan? Were you a lifer? Did you make a change or a switch somewhere along the line? Or are you a full-time Blue Jay?
It's funny. So just being on social media and, having been in the Blue Jays sphere for a long time, you see people talking about this when they fell in love with the game or their first memory. I don't have one of those because I don't remember ever actually not being a Blue Jays fan. I just grew up with it. It's funny. One of my earliest memories of watching the team was the 91 ALCS against the Twins and being disappointed, but I don't remember watching it before that. But I also remember really hating facing Ricky Henderson in 92, but don't remember watching the 89 ALCS because that's when I would have developed that fear of Ricky Henderson. So as far as I know, I've just been a Blue Jays fan since birth. Just grew up with it.
That's awesome. I mean, that's great. Darren, you going to say something?
No, what I was going to say was that I've always loved the Blue Jays because I remember in 1977 when they came into existence. They came along with the Seattle Mariners. I just love the uniforms. I love the fact that it was Northeast. I'm Northeast centric kind of person. I'm racking my brains right now. What was the name of the original stadium they played in?
Exhibition Stadium.
Thank you. And I'm going to start right with that, Josh, if I can unpack that a little bit.
Sure.
Now, I remember watching the games there, and it was always amazed me because if you looked over the left field wall, the stands kind of went out. So like the field would go one way and the stands went another way. It was so interesting. But was that a football stadium? What was that?
Yeah. So the exhibition originally was a market, and there would be, animal shows and horses and things like that. So people would show them off, and this turned into a fair. And then the X was built. That area was built more as a pavilion. It was not intended to ever actually be a baseball stadium, and they did play football there. So the Argos played there.
Argos, yeah.
Yeah, so when they had to put together a baseball field, there was no spot in Toronto at the time with the time to build a stadium. So they just repurposed Exhibition Stadium and left these strange openings and huge distances from the fence for the fans.
Yes. But it was beautiful. I enjoyed it because it was unique. It was great.
Yeah, it was an interesting place to watch a game. So I guess I must have gone to games there because I do remember being there. I just don't know when it was.
Right. Makes sense. And how far distance-wise was Exhibition Stadium compared to now?
Like when did it close down?
Like what's the travel distance? Like, so for example, I know with Shea Stadium into Citi Field, they literally put Citi Field in the parking lot of Shea Stadium.
Got it. I get the. It's not that far. It's like from I'll speak in miles since you guys are based in the States. It's like maybe a couple miles. Like they're not that far apart, and it's one train stop away. So they're actually quite close. Yeah. But now the current stadium, the Rogers Center, formerly the Sky Dome, is right downtown, right? Like right at the main subway line. So
it's still a hotel?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can still stay there.
Everything
the
about
Marriott,
that.
I think.
Yeah, I love that.
And some of our viewers watching, the 43 of you that are on right now, some are diehard baseball fans. Some are just supporting the show, which we love too. So thank you. We see some of our regulars on here. Just for those individuals that may not be as comfortable or familiar, the Toronto Blue Jays are actually the only professional baseball team in Canada. So all other baseball clubs are in the U.S., and the Blue Jays are the only team. There used to be Montreal Expos many, many years ago. But for the last foreseeable amount of time, it's just been the Blue Jays. So it's always a fun time to go visit. If your visiting team enjoys going there, and it's a beautiful stadium, and I think that's where we should go next. So, Josh, if you wouldn't mind, just assuming that you have been, and so if you have, if not, that's fine. But with Rogers Center, just the experience when you first walked into Rogers Center, and then what are like the must-dos, the must-eats. Something unique about the stadium that maybe we don't know about. So we always love those intricacies, and it's part of our, around the ballpark. We love talking about the different ballparks. Yeah. So would you mind just sharing a little bit about Rogers Center?
Yeah. So it's actually undergone a massive change in the last couple of years. It was a 300, well, actually, I think it ended up being $400 million renovation project to completely redo the atmosphere of the ballpark. They've created a much better, joint fun space. It used to be like when it was built, and up until 2 years ago, to go into the park, it was just blue plastic seats all around. The ones in the outfield corners didn't face the plate, so if you sat in them, you got neck pain trying to watch the game. And even the concourses were just kind of bland. What they've done now is they've added a bunch of social spaces, bars, and lounges, and you can go stand now. The one thing you have to do, this is the thing you have to do that they added. If you go early enough, you can stand and watch the bullpens for the opposing team from basically right behind the catcher.
Oh, that's great.
I don't think there's another park that can do that. I know in Seattle you can stand almost right above them. I remember watching Felix Hernandez throw a bullpen when I went down there because I went to school in BC, so we used to go down to Seattle a lot. But yeah, so it's really unique, and the fans are right up against the bullpen. So there's a first come first serve section right behind the visitors' bullpen, which I was kind of shocked they did that just because you're afraid of people throwing stuff at the players and all that. But they don't do that, but they do heckle them. And it does create a really fun atmosphere at the ballpark that you wouldn't normally have, and definitely didn't exist in Toronto before, when even in the Dome, the fans were really high up relative to the field if you were in the outfield. And now they're much lower down and much closer to the action.
Yeah. And you can actually, if I'm not mistaken, you can actually stay at the Rogers Center or nearby and see the stadium from your hotel room or your room or something like that. Isn't that right?
Yeah. So you can, there's a Rogers Center hotel, I think, which Darren was talking about a second ago. Yeah. I think it's a Marriott now, but if you can get rooms that look over the field and you can watch the games from your hotel room.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah. You want to go to the pool? No, I'm watching the game.
Right. And that was one of the quirks that's been there since the stadium opened in 1989. And it's been home to some interesting moments. Like sometimes people leave their blinds open. When
I was going to say, documented happening. Yes.
Yep.
Those definitely happened a few times. When you change for the night.
Or when you're doing other things. But
yes.
But yeah, I've been there once. I went up there, and it's kind of an interesting thing. It's pretty far away though. So if you want a good view of the game, it's not really for that. But if you want more of like a novelty, have some friends over in your hotel room and have some fun, it's kind of a neat idea. But with the new social spaces they've built, it kind of dilutes that, because you can just buy a standing room ticket and go to these spots that are bars overlooking the field. And it's a lot more welcoming to a fan to just enjoy themselves at the ballpark.
So for our viewers, and wow, over 100 now, excellent. Who've never been to a dome before, if you could kind of walk us through that and maybe how it's changed. So for example, the first dome game I ever went to was an all-star game in Montreal, at Olympic Stadium.
Sure.
So maybe you want to compare those two places. That place was huge, cavernous, built for the Olympics and not for baseball. And then I've been to the one in Phoenix. So I've been to a few of them, but I've heard only wonderful things about up in Toronto, and I have to go there. I have not gone there for a baseball game yet. I saw the Argonauts. You've seen that they played the Raptors, but I want to get up there to watch some Maple Leaf action, and then watch some Blue Jays. So tell people what it's like to watch baseball indoors. It is weird for a moment.
It is. I mean, even with the way now that the park is entirely for baseball, right? They do concerts and stuff, but no other sports get played at the Dome anymore. But it is odd. I mean, and especially with the climate here, the roof doesn't open until mid-May at the earliest. Right. And then when you get to the postseason, the league usually makes them close it even when the temperature is warm enough, just for predictability. But it is odd. It does feel a little stuffy watching a game with the roof closed. It's a little sleepy, but it is louder. So
yes. Oh, definitely.
So in those postseason games, especially in 2015 and 16, well, I mean, and even in 2022 when they face the Mariners, but it gets really, really loud in there. So I mean, it's a fun atmosphere in that sense. But if you're at a Tuesday April game, you kind of it can be a little disappointing, a little drab, but when it's open, sorry, I just said when it's open though, like this is the difference between an Olympic Stadium and the Dome. It's just gorgeous. I mean, the funny thing, I won't go too long. Don't worry.
No, go. Trust me.
Yeah.
Go.
One of my favorite things is players who've never been here before in the summer. You see them standing there, staring up into the right field sky because the CN Tower goes right up over the right field fence. Well, not fence, the wall behind the stadium, but And it's just they've never seen it. And you get these people doing a thing called edge walk, where they are basically going around the outside of the top of the CN Tower, hooked into it. And you get these players just baffled about what's going on. So it's just kind of a fun little quirk.
No, that's
cool.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
And you know, and Eileen, don't hate me. I don't mean any hate, but we need to move the podcast along. When you talk about cavernous and kind of drab, Mike has been to many a Tampa Bay game, correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Explain what that's like, Mike.
What, the Tampa Bay game?
Yeah.
Well, the biggest misconception was always that they make it sound like nobody's there, like it's an empty stadium with just like, a few people sitting in there. And that's not the case. Now, granted that they didn't sell the upper deck seats, but a lot of the times the issue was that, because they didn't sell the empty seats, they didn't have this crazy high attendance, right? But they were still getting 17 to 19,000 fans for most of the games. But what's happened over the last, since I believe 2019 was the 2019 beyond, was that fans were not going to Rays games to watch the opposing team anymore. They were going predominantly to see their own team play. When you go to Miami Stadium right now, you're only going to see the team that the Marlins are playing, unless you're in section 123, probably. That's right. Maybe the only people, unfortunately. But the Rays this past 2024 season, the first time in 6 years that the Rays did not make the postseason, so they've had a winning product. So, but that stadium, as your first, I don't know if have you been to Tampa Bay Rays Stadium?
I have, yeah.
So that first drive up, you're like, uh-oh, that looks like it's leaning over to its side. You're kind of like, okay. And it's not, it is awkward being in there and with the catwalk and balls getting lost and stuff like that. But they do make it a fun experience. It is still a really nice stadium. It just from not judging by its cover, that's nothing more true than the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, they're going to be playing in a minor league park this year in Tampa. The individual tickets have still not gone on sale. The reason for that is 85% of the tickets this year are going to go to season ticket holders and 10 or 20 game packs. So I think it's less than 20% of the tickets are going to be sold individually. And when that does happen, you're looking at astronomical prices compared to what you're used to. We've gone the last couple of years and you're able to get $10 seats in the lower level by left or right field. That's not the case anymore, unfortunately, in 2025, because they'll be playing where they're going to be, and it's going to be hot, especially in July. So that's why there are so many home games earlier in the season or earlier in the season, because it's going to be too hot to play in some of those months. So, but what I want to ask, so looking at the Toronto Blue Jays, and guys, I have to shout this out. It shouldn't just be about numbers, but we are at 143 viewers right now. So give yourselves a pat on the back. That's awesome. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, help us get to 1,800. As the bottom says, we are so close. But so looking at the 2025 season, we're looking at a team that have had some notable acquisitions. Obviously, number one, actually you have two that are like off the page at you, but you have Anthony Santander, 5-year deal from the Baltimore Orioles. And then you have Matt Scherzer, who's slated in that 5 position. He's got it made though, doesn't he? I mean, he's getting paid, not even from the Mets, but the Dodgers and the Nationals are going to be paying him for the next 5 years. Like he's not even it, but whatever. So how are you feeling about, let's starting there with the acquisitions, some others, they got Jeff Hoffman, Yimi Garcia, Andres Jimenez, Josh Walker, Miles Straw. How are you feel about the acquisitions? Do you feel honestly, as an, if you could put yourself in the outsider perspective looking in, have they improved or do you feel like they've taken a step back?
Well, if you ask me if they've improved on how they ended the season, it's an obvious yes. I mean, the only person they really lost was Jordan Romano, who actually switched places with Hoffman on the Phillies. But it's a kind of a complicated question if they're better than they were at the start of last season from, on paper, right? Because everything went wrong last year. So if you asked me if the team last year was going to win 76 games, I would have said you were a little crazy.
Right.
And so I think that they're probably comparable to where they were last year. The offense might be a bit better, but the pitching might be a bit worse. Just based on what happened with Kevin Gausman and Chris Bassett last year, where you don't really know what they're going to give you in 2025. But that said, I think that Santander's power is going to be very welcome behind Vlad, because that was a big problem last year. Vlad, he hit over 300, but it didn't matter. He wasn't getting driven in because the guys behind him just really struggled. And they could get hits, but they didn't string together enough to score runs. So adding some, 44 home run hitter, I mean, he might not hit 44 again, but a guy who has that kind of power is going to make a big difference. And then, Sandlin and Garcia and Hoffman will help rebuild a bullpen that just was awful last year. It went from being one of the best in the league to one of the absolute worst. I think it was they dropped from, just on Fangraphs, war 4.5 to -2.5 in 1 year. So I do think the team for sure will be better than last year. I would even predict maybe 10 more wins than last year, but I don't know if it's enough given the strength of the division and just the strength actually of the American League right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's a great point. And then Darren, if you want to chime in, but I believe wholeheartedly they're a 10 to 12 win, easy improvement. But because the Boston Red Sox have gotten much better, Yankees, I feel like Darren and I were talking offline, even though they lost Soto, I think they've gotten significantly better. What it may look like an outsider, like, oh, it's just another down year for the Blue Jays. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't have hitting at all, but they had a rocket, or their rotation right now. They got one of the best pitchers in the game is going to be slated in that 5th spot, Taj Bradley. So it is a great back. And we didn't even talk about the Orioles. But yeah, Taj is going to be in the 5th spot. And Orioles are, what they are. So we can't look at a potential 85-win season not making the playoffs as not a successful year because the strength of that division. If they were in the AL Central, it's a different story, But thoughts on that, Darren, before we then we like to break down the rotation a little bit. But what are your thoughts on their ability to improve this year? Do you find them to be a team that's going to be just on the outside looking in, or
they were in the legitimate Juan Soto hunt? Mm-hmm. They were in the hunt for Alonso if that had to happen, at least threw some money there. This is a team that you mark it down that will make the playoffs this year. Why? And it's not a negative thing. I think the Orioles cannot compete with them now. They lost one of their best players. And I don't think you're going to get the pitching that you got last year for the Orioles. And the Orioles kind of self-destructed toward the end of the season last year. So I see the Yankees. I see the Blue Jays and the Red Sox getting in from the AL East. I see, we talked about the Astros are the Astros. I think they get in. They get in 6 or 7, and then anything can happen. Look, I know it's a totally different sport, but it makes sense. Look at what happened in college football this year with the 12-team playoffs. The top 4 teams were outed the first week. Just you get in, you get hot, short series, it changes everything.
It does. Yeah. And that division, honestly, if you look at the end of the season, if I said right now it's going to be Yankees, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays, Orioles, and it winds up being Orioles, Blue Jays, Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, no one's going to be that like it can be both of those things. And so that's an exciting time, honestly, to be a fan of that division because it's going to be a battle all season. Maybe they're not playing each other 19 times like they used to, but each of those games are going to be so important this year's season more than ever. And this is a total sidebar. It's not even on my notes, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but just real quick, it was kind of funny. We were having a discussion about the Chicago White Sox, and I just want to get Darren and I chatted about it, but I wanted to get your quick opinion, Josh, of this quote unquote major league club, the Chicago White Sox. But in Vegas odds, I'm not I'm never going to put money down or anything like that. But would you take the following bet? Obviously, we're not talking about $1 in $1 million odds. We're talking about a 1 in 30 right now. If you go to Vegas and you put down $100 that the Chicago White Sox win the 2025 World Series, you're getting a $40,000 payout. Now it's a 1 in 30 chance. They had like 42 wins last season, but is that a bet you're willing to make? Are you willing to part with the 100? No. Okay. There you go.
No,
okay.
those odds are not good enough. You got to give me, I bet 100 to win 150,000 at least. Even then I probably wouldn't do it. They got no shot.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure. Maybe they'll move up to 50 wins, but that's probably it. So jumping back. So let's go into the rotation just for a little bit, if you would mind. So
sure.
We have, like I mentioned, Matt Scherzer's probably at the 5, maybe the 4, depending on where Bowden Francis falls in that. But who is the obviously Jose Barrios is the ace of the staff there, but how do you like how this rotation is in place this year. Do you feel like this is a team, because they didn't make a big, like they got some people, but this is a team that financially at the trade deadline, if they're in it, can make a big splash. So, but how do you feel like with that rotation? Are they an arm away, or do you think they can compete now with what they have?
I think that they can. I mean, really, so much of what happens with this rotation really depends on the two guys I mentioned earlier, Gausman and Bassett. Barrios is Barrios. He's been the same guy for his entire career, except for that 1 year in 2021 where he randomly was bad, or 22. But I mean, Gausman finished in the top 3 of the Cy Young Award 2 years ago, right? And and Bassett had a 3.7 ERA and 200 innings 2 years ago. Both of them struggled last year. Gausman still had an ERA under 4, but his strikeouts went away. Something just didn't work. He started the year hurt, so he just never really caught up. So if you get a return to form from Gausman, who's still young enough that he should, and then Barrios, Scherzer, Bassett, and then some combination of Francis or Bloss or Yariel Rodriguez or Trey Savage, if he comes up, or Alec Manoah, who should be back around June. So I do think the rotation should be good enough. It's just whether it's as like in 2023, they got into the postseason solely on the strength of their starting rotation. They might need something like that again to really make a push, but I think it's strong. It's definitely a team strength.
Okay.
I couldn't disagree. It's spot on.
Yep. He said what we're all thinking. What I wanted to go next real quick, you mentioned the farm system. So I'm not sure, how deep you are into farm system knowledge.
Yeah.
Obviously the top ranked one person I know, I believe it's Ricky Tiedemann, left-handed pitcher. But the Blue Jays right now, they're ranked 23rd in farm system. Is there any name that maybe those that are not too familiar with the Toronto Blue Jays, or even if they are, they may not know about, that stands out to you as a prospect that can make a huge impact? Is there anyone on your personal radar? Because one thing,
do you mean this year?
Is sometimes the ranking looks deceiving, like, oh, they're 23rd in Major League in farm system. That's not good. Well, sometimes it's because they know how to develop their talent, and their talent moves up to the main roster basically and gets the job done. They're not trading all their stars away. And so it's not always a bad thing to be there, depending on the team. Marlins are obviously
the next 2-3 years, Josh. Next 2 or 3 years.
Well, just a general thought about the Jays system. One thing that's kind of interesting about the team is they have a lot of guys who are on the cusp of the major leagues right now, or could play in the major leagues right now, that are still considered prospects. But they don't have as many of the guys who are considered as high end, like, that are going to be ranking the top 10 of a Baseball America 100 list. But, you mentioned Tiedemann and Aurelvis Martinez are two guys that would have, I think, been much, much higher. But Tiedemann got injured. He's out for the year with Tommy John. And Aurelvis Martinez got the 80-game suspension last year. He's got legit power. He led the minor leagues in home runs a couple times. He's really young. And so he's the guy. So him and Alan Roden. So again, another guy that's not on any prospect lists. This year, those two guys are the ones that I think are absolutely pay attention to them for impact at the major league level. Will Wagner as well, but he got a little more press because he came up last year and he was part of the Kikuchi trade. He's Billy Wagner's son, so people might know a bit more about him. And if we're looking for someone who's a couple years away, so Arjun Namala is the one guy down in the low minors who really has superstar level potential. I mean, we're looking at like a right-handed only hitter. Francisco Lindor is the kind of ceiling this guy's got.
I love that.
Yeah.
Darren and I, for full transparency, are diehard Mets fans, so you speak in our language there. Yeah,
right. I mean, he's a strong kid. He's got unbelievably fast hands, natural power, really good defensive shortstop. He does have a bit more swing and miss, but he spent the entire year at 19 years old. So actually, he was 18 when he started in high A ball, and he struggled, went back to the complex league, came back up, and just torched the league. So that's a guy that I think is going to be someone we're going to be hearing a lot about, even as early as after this year. Like, he won't be in the big leagues, but he might be rocketing up prospect lists.
That's awesome. And one reason I asked that question, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Darren, too. One of my favorite things, I haven't got to do it this season yet, but one of my favorite things to do is I love to look at that prospect list, and especially for the Mets, which I'm fortunate, but being a Mets fan living here in Florida, Port St. Lucie is just under an hour away. Love spring training and all that, but I love going back to the backfield before the season starts and scouting some of the talent. And so I love looking at those top prospects that I know are going to be at camp and giving them a firsthand look in person, and just seeing, yes, it's nice to see the names on the jerseys and all that kind of stuff of the bigger names and stuff, but I love trying to find those guys and seeing what they're working on. And that way, 2-3 years from now going, oh, well, for me, it was, and my father we were being Mets fans. It was Daniel Murphy. We got to see his first ever minor league baseball game with Port St. Lucie Mets, and just to see how he became and what he become, and all those home runs in the postseason, and just an awesome person. And so I got to say, hey, I saw him, and 2 years later he was, in spring training uniform, so definitely enjoy that. If you ever get that opportunity, I definitely encourage it. As good as spring training games are, there's nothing like going at those backfields and watching drills. And even if you don't get autographs and pictures, I'm more of an experienced person. I am like hey, sign this, because probably 5 years from now, I wouldn't even be able to make out who it is that signed the thing. But I'm more of just like get in there and experience it. So have you had that opportunity, Darren, to see like backfield stuff?
Oh yeah, we've talked about this before. I was very fortunate to cover the Fresno Grizzlies for Fresno Sports Talk for 8-9 years, and they were the top AAA farm team, and I got very lucky. They were for the San Francisco Giants when they won a few World Series, and then they were the Houston Astros, and they won the World Series, and the Washington Nationals, and they won the World Series. And because, as you know, a lot of these teams, a lot of these locations change teams. So I was very fortunate to see Matt Cain, Tim Lincecum. I was able to see a lot of these people perform as minor leaguers, and you saw the spark. You saw what they had, which is crazy. I have a Buster Posey autograph from when he played at Fresno, and you can see it. And I was able to kind of talk to the managers and the coaches, and you'd have these wonderful people. Ryan Sandberg came in, when he was coaching minor leagues. And to your point, it's not the game, it's the backfields. It's watching all this other stuff. It's great. I was also fortunate enough to see Aaron Judge play for Fresno State,
Wow.
And as you all know, this, but you thought he was a good player, but not what happened. He got better once he got into that Yankee farm system and adjusted some things and got some really good coaching. So he was a thoroughbred, if you know what I mean, ready, baby giraffe when he was at Fresno State. He became Aaron Judge in the pros. He popped at the right time. I advocate so strongly for the game that I love. Go to a minor league ballpark, go to those backfields, and just watch practice. Josh, how about you? You have any similar stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, so I've gone down to spring training every year since like 1993.
Love it.
Yeah, so I've gone over there a couple times. I do love like the end of the games, or when it's like, I would go with my parents and they'd be like, all right, well, the major leagues are on. I'm like, no, like let's watch these guys. Like, like that's where like I first saw Anthony Alford when he was 18 years old, and like and then some of these other guys like that I just mentioned. I'm looking forward to seeing Nimala again this year, and Josh Kasevich, and Emmanuel Bonilla, just seeing their little appearances. And so it's funny though, I actually played at a pretty high level, so some of them, nice. Like I played against Matt Cain.
Oh, there you go. See, there you go. Love that. I love everything about that.
Yeah, and Scott Kazmir, Cole Hamels, but these are the guys like you knew then.
I'm getting chills. Right? I really am.
Yeah, like you knew then. It's like you saw them, you're like, oh, okay. And Justin Upton, he was like 3 years younger than us, and it's like, oh, this guy is amazing, right?
Right.
So like you really can tell with some of these guys when they're that young that they are that good.
Yeah, and it just is, and that's why sometimes I give praise to Ron Darling, who said this, and I don't even think it was on a Met broadcast. I think it was when he was doing TBS. Could have been a Met broadcast. He said that one guy that everybody throws away mentally, he just had a cup of coffee in the pros, would be the greatest person you've ever seen play in your neighborhood. They couldn't. And Josh, you played at a high level, so am I wrong?
Yeah,
these guys are incredibly talented.
Yeah, I mean, the best catcher I ever. Okay, Joey Votto was a catcher technically when I played with him, but that doesn't count because he never played catcher in the bigs. But George Kataris was like a star catcher, and he was barely a major leaguer for the Brewers.
Right.
Yeah.
And so speaking about Brewers, he was also a Met. I got a funny, an interesting story on the flip side. So Bill Pulsifer was a pitcher for the Mets when he came up. And he's part of this young Turks who kind of come in and change the world. And unfortunately, and I still follow him on X to this day, and he got an arm injury. So nobody wanted him. And he ended up with Milwaukee, and he's doing some things. I remember going to a game. He was playing for the Long Island Ducks of the Independent League. Who was coaching the other team? Ricky Henderson. Right.
Wow.
So I mean, it was great. So anyway, he's thrown. And so I didn't have any press credentials at that time, but I kind of knew who to talk to and be polite and everything. So I was talking to this one scout with the jug gun. And I said, he's going to make it back quick. He goes, nope, it's flat. And I knew exactly what he meant. You know, like what to the trained eye, he couldn't have that stuff he once had again. I'm looking at it, I go, wow, he's throwing hard, but it was flat. So he made it back, but it was never the same.
Yeah, that's sad. Well, I mean, Pulsifer was part of that group of Mets prospects that didn't work out, right?
No, they all had the same bad arm injuries. This is a bad coach.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Just a quick, I have to interject just for a second. We are unprecedented waters here now. We are at, ready for the big number, 206 live.
What number?
So that is awesome. So thank you guys so much. And we still got just under 20 minutes left, so we got some good stuff to still dive into. So that's super cool. I want to ask you this. This is one thing we love doing is telling stories and whatnot. And so I'll start with one, and then you can share yours and stuff. But being a fan is more than just watching the game and your favorite player doing this and that. You have to kind of looking back into the rearview mirror. There has to be, we all think about this big moment or that big moment. But what is one memorable moment as a fan that really, really stands out to you as a Blue Jays fan? Is it a World Series moment? Is it just a random game on a Tuesday that maybe you went to and something happened? But what would you, looking back into your, to the past, what is one moment that really, really stands out to you? I'll start with one for me. I don't know if this could ever be topped, but just in general, I was, for the worst circumstance ever, was having to go to before my father had passed. And so went up to New York, and we had one day to kind of just get my head away from all the, what I knew was coming the rest of that visit. And I got an opportunity to see a Mets game against the Padres at 1:00 on I think it was a Friday, which was exciting. That's first time going to Citi Field, never been. I felt like I was sitting in the moon, by the moon, right, so high. But last minute, I was like, let me just quickly check to see, let's make this day even better. Let's see what the Yankees got going on that night. And surely they were the home team. They were there playing Boston of all teams. And I was like, well, so I looked at upper deck seats for that. And I think I found one for like $42. Got to see Mariano Rivera that night and everything like that. So I was able to go to a Mets Padres game at 1:00 and then get on the subway and go to the Yankee game that night. And just kind of not, I knew everything that I was about to face that weekend and how difficult it was going to be, but just that experience to be able to see both in one day, kind of was able to kind of put pause on the stress that was life at that moment and just enjoy the crap out of that day. So for me, that's one as a fan, I won't, it was just a random Padre game, but I will never forget that one. So say that to see what your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I don't have one that has that same kind of emotional resonance of the tie to it. I've been to so many ball games in my life because I live here and I'm a season ticket holder. So I go to as many as I can. But the one that immediately popped in my head when you asked this question, there were two. One, in terms of, it's one of the greatest moments in Blue Jays history. His name is mud now because of the horrible things he's done since he retired. But Roberto Alomar, the home run off Eckersley in the 92 LCS. But the reason that one resonates is not just because it was an amazing home run, but Thanksgiving in Canada is in October.
Yep.
And we were having Thanksgiving dinner during that game. And it was 6-1 Oakland in the 8th, I think, going into the 8th. And So we're like, okay, we'll eat now. But then I could hear from the TV and downstairs, like the Jays were scoring runs. So I'm running back and forth from the dinner table to see what's going on. And I just made it to the seat when Alomar hit the home run off Eckersley. And then we're like, all right, we're watching the rest of this one. We're going to see it. And it ended in I think it was the 10th. But so that one was that one. I'll never forget that. Just the back and forth running from the table when I was 8 years old. I just turned 8. So I'm surprised they let me do that, but I'm glad that my parents are Blue Jays fans. And then I've been, I was at all the playoff games in 2015 and 16, and most like the bat flip game from Jose Bautista. But for me, the one was Game 3 against the Royals in the 2015 ALCS, when just being there in the crowd for the Cueto chants, copying the Pirates from a few years previously, but it was just so fun. Right? Like it was just a party atmosphere in the stadium, just heckling Johnny Cueto in a way that I'd never experienced at the Dome before. I'd experienced them booing, like when AJ Burnett came back with the Yankees, but never something like that. So that was a lot of fun.
So mine, and I wanted to make it Toronto Blue Jays centric, and
nice.
For this, and it's a tie, and one is a wonderful baseball moment, and one is a wonderful chirp by a fan to a Blue Jay.
Okay.
So, all right, and Josh, if you can figure it out, the chirp that was not nonverbal, that's the way I'm going to put it, was unbelievable. So, and also show my age. But I think when the Wild thing served it up to Joe Carter, that's pure baseball. There'll never be a big hit, Joe. Touch them all. I mean, just I'm sorry, baseball really resonates for me. When you're a kid, your parents get divorced. There's a lot going on. There was always baseball. I could play it. I could listen to it. I could watch it. And think about those people, playing that game that's for kids, and Joe Carter going deep. It was great. So that's one moment. I was bouncing at the time at a place. And, you're supposed to stay kind of, reserved and keep your eyes on. I remember going, whoa! Get yelled at by the bar owner. What are you doing?
Yes.
But the second one, I'll call it a chirp, but it was technically what you're not supposed to do. Danny Ainge is playing third base.
Oh, wow. We're going way back. Okay.
Right. And for those of you who don't know, Danny Ainge played for the Blue Jays and for the Celtics at the same time. Right. Or just, within a year of each other. But anyway, he's playing for the Blue Jays. And out of nowhere, somebody threw a basketball at him. 100% documented true story. I'll never forget that because that's fun. Not to hit him with it, just like, hey, you're better off with this. And he was a lot better of a basketball player than he was a baseball player.
All right, I don't want. Oh no, that's amazing. Oh, of course he was. But okay, I have to share my favorite chirp then, just because of that.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing, but the player and the crowd made it good. This one, Manny Ramirez was in Boston. I think it was Boston. Might have been Cleveland, but
that's all you got to say.
Yeah, he was playing right field, and my friends and I were sitting down there, and my friend goes, "Hey, Manny, you know what rhymes with Ramirez?" And then he waits. And you can see Manny looking up, trying to figure it out. All the crowd was like, what rhyme? And then he just yells, "You suck!" And Manny busted up laughing.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
He lost it. He thought it was so funny.
Because he took it the right way. It's chirp.
Yeah. It was
so
great.
good. How do we top
Thank you
that?
for sharing that. That's fantastic.
Oh, man. Wow. So good. And it's awesome that he heard that. Like you're right. He was probably just like doing the math. Like there's got to be something obvious that I'm not thinking of.
Yeah,
but
you could tell he was trying to figure it out, and then that's why he just started laughing because it was just so ridiculous.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what I'd love to do, one thing we, like to have a little fun, and so I'm just doing a quick little. It's only be 5 quick rounds. This is going to be a who would you sign? So. Okay. Pretending we're here in 2025 and pretending these guys are in the prime of their career. So I'm just going to go ahead and shoot these 5 out to you in a row and just whatever comes off the cuff. And just interesting to see with that. I know in the past we've done some Mount Rushmores and stuff, so those are fun too. But this is kind of the direction we're going right for this year. So
to add them to the 2025 team.
No, so this, so who, obviously none of these people except for one are on the 2025 roster.
No, I'm saying who would I add
back
to the
into
team?
back into the heyday here, but if they were in their prime and they were available in 2025, who you would take. So
got it.
So starting off, we got on the pitching side, we got Jim Clancy or Roy Halladay.
Halladay.
So, what a just terrible situation, everything that happened there with Halladay, but so good, such a great player. So, and then one more on the pitching side, Jimmy Key or David Wells.
Jimmy Key is my favorite player of all time. So at their peak, they're both pretty similar, although Wells' peak was actually not really with the Jays. Well, it's kind of, but Jimmy Key. I got to add Jimmy Key.
That's a great answer. I would agree with that one. I think it's easy for a lot of people to think David Wells just because he was a bigger stature and stuff like that. But I think the correct answer that we were looking for was Jimmy Key.
Agreed.
So we'll do 3 on field. So got to start out with outfield one here. We got Vernon Wells or Jose Bautista.
Oh, this is another easy one. I mean, the Jays need power, and then Bautista is the greatest position player they've ever had, arguably. He's in the mix with others, but I mean, his peak with the Blue Jays was MVP level.
Yes. Oh, yeah, of course. And then we got 2. You can call them more challenging, but maybe not. We'll go with George Bell or Joe Carter. I think that's an obvious one, though. But go ahead.
I don't know if it is. I would take George Bell.
George Bell too.
Yeah.
Okay. No, and I'm glad. So because it's easy to separate big moment from career.
Yeah. George Bell was a better player.
Yeah. Okay. And then my very last one, Carlos Delgado or Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Oh man. Oh, that's a hard one.
That is. I mean, luckily no one's going to find us if we say the wrong thing. But
so Carlos Delgado or just keeping Vlad?
Yes, or just keeping Vlad. Now, knowing that Vlad, knowing that he can't walk next year and go to a new club, like you have,
which is just for 2025. They both are not there on the. It's just for next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Delgado, just because you know what you're going to get from him, but man, like you can't go wrong with either of those two.
No,
Can I upset the apple cart?
Yes.
John Olerud over both of them. Thank you.
Well, if you're getting 93 Olerud, sure.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yes. Yeah, I almost put him on the list too. Yeah, 93 Olerud for sure. Yeah. Didn't he? Was there something with him? He had a different kind of helmet or something, right?
He won the national helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so he had an aneurysm in college, and so he wore the old style batting helmet at first base all the time, just to protect his head.
He was so smooth of a player, both offensively and defensively. He doesn't get nearly enough love.
Well, he was the first Shohei Ohtani.
Yes,
he was. He was the Pac-12 player of the century. That's what he was named. He was a hitter and a pitcher. He would have been first overall in the draft if he hadn't had the aneurysm. And the Jays only got him in the 3rd round by paying him a ton of money and promising he would go straight to the big leagues. He never played a game in the minors until he was 40.
Yeah,
it's just such a good player. I need to ask if I can ask a question.
Yeah.
Two things. Roger Clemens Hall of Fame, yes or no, and why? And 2, sum up his career with the Blue Jays, because people don't seem to realize how great he was as a Blue Jay.
Okay. Yes is the first question. I'm generally of the mind that if you are that good, there's no way steroids got you that good. Mm-hmm. He's arguably the greatest pitcher of all time. There's other people in the conversation, but he won 7 Cy Young awards, I think it was.
Yep.
And to me, that guy belongs in. Bonds belongs in. That's my opinion. Yeah. A-Rod belongs in, although it's a little iffier there because he actually broke a written rule, but still, he paid his punishment. A-Rod, Manny, I'd put them all in. But in terms of his career in Toronto, I mean, while he was here, he was arguably the best pitcher the Blue Jays have ever had. He won the pitching Triple Crown twice. You can't do better than that. Led league in ERA, strikeouts, and wins 2 years in a row. And I mean, he was just the greatest, and he helped Pat Henkin become better. And I mean, Henkin won the Cy Young the year before Clemens showed up, but he just helped him with the endurance level of his game. Henkin himself has said this. But it ended in a way that he forced a trade out, which was a contractual weird thing. So that has kind of left a sour taste for Blue Jays fans. But it ended up, the trade actually worked out great. They got Wells back and Homer Bush and Graham Lloyd. Homer Bush was great for a year, and then Wells was really good for a couple of years before he himself was traded away. But I think most Jays fans acknowledge how great Clemens was, but the way he left maybe doesn't give him the kind of love that he deserves based on his performance.
And my follow-up also is another person who doesn't get enough love. He played with the Blue Jays late in his career and actually won a title with them, and that's Dave Winfield. And it's sort of weird because Dave Winfield, I was part of the Dave Winfield Foundation when I mentioned earlier going to the All-Star Game in Montreal. That was through that. So I got to know him and his brother, more his brother than him. But everybody thinks, Randy Johnson is the first person to be a major league ball player and a bird. Unfortunately, what happened there. But do you remember what happened with Dave Winfield in Toronto?
He got arrested.
He got arrested. Do you know that story, Mike?
No, I did not.
Josh, can you share that story?
Yeah, so this was back at Exhibition Stadium in the 80s.
Yep.
And Winfield was just warming up between innings. And there was a seagull on the field. And Winfield threw a baseball at it to scare it.
Yep.
But it bounced up and hit the bird and killed it.
Yes.
So Dave Winfield was arrested after the game because it is illegal to kill a seagull.
Yes.
And then he was eventually released, but it became like an incident, and he was known for it for years.
Yes, and so the fact that he ended up back in Toronto really kind of was weird to me.
Oh, I love that. Oh,
and again, he brought them their first World Series title with a 2-run hit, 2 RBI double in the 11th. He drove in the winning runs.
Yeah, he was clutch. He was.
Yes. So I had to put the PSA out there. I'll check the bottom of our screens, but
it is legal.
I think that is the perfect way to. I know we're out of time, so I don't want to end this because we're at 231 viewers. But thank each and every one of you. So my final thoughts before we wrap things up here. It's been a pleasure, Josh, and hopefully we can chat again. Hopefully here in a few months once season gets into the good stuff. But your 2025, you mentioned your season ticket holders, Blue Jays, and whatnot. Do you have any plans this year to be attending either spring training or trying out a new stadium you haven't been to? Or
so I will go to spring training, but every year my friends and I, we go to a different park where the Jays are playing. So we're going to Sacramento. We're gonna.
Oh, listen, you're gonna actually enjoy that stadium. My son played open ice hockey at that stadium.
No way.
Yeah, they played. It was good. They won the. Without sounding like that parent, they won the state championship that year. But an exhibition game they played outdoors at that stadium. Yeah, it's kind of
nice. Cool. Yeah, and then right before that, though, we're going to check out a Dodgers game in San Francisco, which I've never been that stadium, and I'd love. Beautiful. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful parks in the game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that park. And then Giants and Dodgers, can't get much better than that.
That's an awesome trip. We have a regular guest that came on 2 times, but he's filled in once or twice too. Baseball road tripper, where Tony Voda, he went. I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but he was the first person to ever do an East Coast West Coast game in the same day. He started out with the Boston Marathon game that morning, caught I think it was the 8 innings of that game, and then got on a flight to LA to catch Dodgers game that evening. I think he made it by the 2nd or 3rd inning. Talk about anxiety though, like trying to pull that off. Like if you're 25, 30 minutes late and whatever in traffic, like, it's an epic fail. So like so much planning had to go into that. So, but people like that, that have gone to all 30 stadiums, like when you have new stadiums like Sacramento and this year Tampa, Steinbrenner Field, like, it's a hot spot for people to check another stadium off their list. So, but yeah, so far I'm hoping to pick a new stadium myself this year. I'm still, Minnesota is kind of on the radar. We'll try that out, but I'm going to one game. I'm going to a Mets Rays in Port St. Lucie on St. Patrick's Day. So far that's my thing for this year. So, but thank you so much, Josh, and all of you, all 232 of you, for watching, all the new subscribers, all the likes, everything like that. Just please continue to share this with friends, family, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. And we will be back here a week from tonight. We will be talking some Baltimore Orioles baseball. Boo. No, we'll be talking about more Baltimore Orioles a week from tonight. So definitely check us out on that date. But until next time, any final thoughts, Darren, as we wrap this up?
I just loved it. And, I think they make the playoffs. Again, I always have to give the caveat, injuries aside. But real quick, Josh, because I asked this of people in especially from Canada. Serious question. What would you say is the list of love in your city? Is it? I'm going to guess, and tell me if I'm wrong. It's the Maple Leafs, Blue Jays, Argonauts, and then the Raptors.
No, the Argonauts are a clear fourth. I
love football.
The Toronto soccer team, TFC, might even be ahead of the Argos. But
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, CFL's not huge in Toronto, but I think there's more Bills fans than Argos fans. But
you almost had the Bills.
So close. The Leafs are definitely number one. I'm not a Leafs fan, but yeah, they're number one. And then Raptors and the Jays are really close. I don't know which is better. Like when they're good, you really see them come out. I mean, when the Raptors won the title, there were 3 million people downtown celebrating. So I think it's really close between those two. But the Leafs are definitely number one.
Oh, absolutely. And
so this has been a blast. So again, thanks each and every one of you guys for watching. And thank you, Josh. Thank you, Darren. And until next time, everyone, we'll see you around the ballpark. Bye, guys. Awesome. Thank you so much.